Buuza Kamisona.
I am called Apai Fiona. A lot of people know me as Diena Kakua because I am proud of where I come from. I am a journalist who has ventured into business and farming. I own a boutique in Arua town, and also I direct Nyolani Investments Limited. First of all, what is the formula? I mean the formula for assessing small-scale businesses for domestic taxes.
Welcome to this week's session, and the question we have today is from Ms. Apai Fiona, who is a journalist and a business lady from Arua City. Presumptive tax for small-scale businesses. For small-scale businesses. So, presumptive tax for small-scale business are mainly in 4 different bands. Let me call them bands. The first band is for the businesses that are completely exempt of tax. And the law says for any business whose turnover, but for purposes of saving time, I'll use T/O for turnover, is less than 10 million Uganda shillings. This is annual turnover. That means the sales total for the whole year. If they are less than 10 million, this business pays nil. In other words, it is tax exempt. So if you have your small mudala somewhere selling your small items like bananas, tomatoes, small things that on a daily you sell you have a turnover of less than 30,000. The government of Uganda has completely exempted you of tax. You do not have to pay a shilling of income tax. But supposing the business is slightly bigger, but still in the small scale band, which most likely is what our sister Fiona is asking about. If the business has a turnover greater than 10 million, but less than 30 million, what tax does it pay? So we are going to say turnover greater than 10 million, but less than 30 million. Okay? What tax does such a business pay? The law says this business will pay a tax of 0.4% of its turnover, but the turnover of this business, the first part of the turnover, 10 million, is tax exempt. So it will be whatever the turnover of this business is, less the 10 million which is exempt. Okay? 4% of the turnover of the business, which is over and above the 10 million which is tax exempt, is what you will pay as your presumptive tax once every year. For purposes of clarity, let's take an example of a business whose turnover is, say, 20 million, okay? 20 million is here. It's between 10 and 30. So, let me move this one down for clarity. As an example, e.g., if a business has a turnover of 20 million, this means that on a daily, the sales of every day, if you aggregate them over the year, they total to 20 million. This business will pay, to calculate the tax for this business, the presumptive tax for this business will equal to 0.4%. And if you remember, 0.4% can otherwise be represented as 0.4 over 100 because percentage is out of 100 times the turnover of 20 million less the base of 10 million, which is exempt. And what does this come to? This is 10 million, okay? Times, what is 0.4 over 100? This is the same as 4 over 1,000. We have multiplied here 10 and here 10 to come to this. So, 4 over 1,000 times 10 million. If these three zeros go together, what will the outcome be? 40,000 Uganda shillings. That is the tax payable by a business whose turnover is 20 million. Turnover of 20 million out of 365 days, 20 million over 365 days. Roughly, the sales of this one is about 54,000 or thereabout. So, any business that has sales of about 50,000 or less in a day will be paying income tax or presumptive tax of just 40,000 Uganda shillings. That is if the business keeps record. I want to talk about those businesses that may have no records. The law says that for any business which has no records, but which estimates its turnover to be between 10 million and 30 million, there is a flat rate you can pay as a business, flat pay of, for any business that does not keep records, but it is estimated that its turnover is in that range of turnover is in the range of more than 10 million, but less than 30 million, it will pay a flat rate of 80. But the other one who keeps record will calculate the exact payable tax. And as the example that I've showed you previously on the last page, if the turnover is 20 million, it will pay 40 million. Meaning if the turnover is 25, it will be 25 minus 10, which is 15. Then 4 times 15, it will pay 60,000. If its turnover is 25, and so on and so forth. So there is definitely a benefit in a business keeping records. You pay the exact tax. But if you don't have records, then the law has set for you a minimum of 80,000. This is the lowest, this is the second band of presumptive tax. But there is a third band. And the third band says, how about those whose turnover is bigger than 30 million but less than 50? So the second band here is turnover for the business. It's bigger than 30 million but less than 50 million. Okay? And here we can do another example of e.g. 40 million. 40 million is here. It's between 50 and 30. What will the presumptive tax be? The presumptive tax for a business that is at a turnover of 40 million will be at a rate of 0.5 this time, times the difference, but then plus the base which we have carried forward from the previous example. So, a turnover of 40 million as an example will be, remember, there was this base, this flat base for businesses without records. So for you to calculate the presumptive tax payable for a business whose turnover is 40, it will be 80,000, the base carried forward from the previous band, which is here. Okay? The base which is here. Plus 0.5%, again, a percent is presented by over 100, times the presumptive tax now calculated as 40 million turnover minus the base for 80, which was 30 million. Okay? Again, this is 10 million, the difference between these two numbers. And here, it's the same as 5 over 1,000. And then plus our 80,000 base carried from the previous band. So again, this one will go with 3 zeros. From there, we'll get 50,000, which we add onto our 80,000. And the total tax payable here will be 130,000. Okay? So this is the second category and example. But again, in these categories, we'll have those without records. And what does the law say? If you fall in this turnover, but you have no records, then you'll pay a flat rate. No records, you'll pay a flat rate of 200,000. 200,000. Again, you can see the benefit of keeping records. With records, you'll pay the exact amount. When we use the example of 40 million, we paid 130. If it was a little closer to the 50, but less than 40, maybe you'd pay about 150 or 160. But if you have no records, then there's a flat rate, which is 200,000. So this kind of example will continue, but in the interest of time, let me briefly mention the other bands. The next band is band number 3, is a turnover which is bigger than the 50 million, okay, but less than 80 million. Turnover, bigger than 50, but less than 80. And for this one, the percentage payable is the base. You remember the base we carried forward for flat? For flat records, so this one, the base used is 180. For this one, if you're in this bandwidth, the tax payable is 180 plus 0.6% over 100 times your turnover, less than the base we've carried forward of 50 million. And in the interest of time, you will go through this example and see what exactly you get. But if you do not have records again, and you are in this category, what you'll pay here will be exactly 400,000. In this band, no records, you will pay a flat rate of 400,000, okay? And if you have records, you'll pay the exact rate, which you can calculate by working through this. And then the final category is if you are in the range of 80 million, above 80, but less than 150. Turnover, less than 150 million. Okay? For this one, the calculation would be a base of 360,000 plus 0.7%, which is 0.7, your turnover minus the last base we used of 80 million. And then you work out and you will get the exact calculation from this. But in the interest of time, allow me not to go into the calculation. The important point for you to note, and if you have no record, yes, For those without record in this band, this was number 4, between 80 million. If you have no record in this category, you'll pay a flat rate of 900,000. So imagine a business whose turnover is about 140 million. You have no record, and all you are asked to pay in a whole financial year is 900,000. So this is the next and the highest band of presumptive tax. Now the assumption is that if your turnover is above 150 million, then you are no longer a very small business. You will go into the process of filing your return and calculating all your costs and your profit, and then you pay 30% of the gross profit that you make. So you have now matured into the medium business, which pays income tax direct and also registers for other indirect taxes like VAT. So Fiona, I hope this answers the question on how you calculate income tax for small businesses. Now, below the threshold of 150, a small business, you're not expected to pay to register for VAT. So you are saved from the burden of accounting for indirect taxes. Of course, you may make a choice to register for VAT because it's optional. Maybe you have someone you supply who requires you to be registered for VAT. Then you register for VAT and you account for it as an indirect tax. But it's not a direct tax to your business, so you should not be worried about it.
Buuza Kamisona.
We strongly believe that it will only be through such constructive engagement that we'll be able to broaden our tax base and build our country together. At the same time, I would like to thank all those taxpayers who have diligently paid their taxes since the beginning of this financial year. As you all know, we are in the last month of the financial year 2024-25. This month of June is the month when we receive all the payments for income tax, and I would like to take this opportunity to encourage all our taxpayers to take advantage of the remaining less than 10 days now to file their returns and pay their income tax on time. This is the only sure way we can develop our country, Uganda. So all of you who are already on our tax registers, even those who have not been there but are ready to join, do not miss the opportunity of adding your tafari to the development of your country. So you can register online, you can pay online, you can approach any of our offices and ask, how can I contribute? Pay your presumptive tax for the small businesses, pay your rental income tax for those with rental properties, and the experience of paying your tax has been simplified. By just going on your phone and pressing *285#, you'll be given a menu where you can pay your presumptive tax. You don't have to file any return. The example I showed you earlier of the bands, estimate the band of turnover where you fall and pay your 80,000, pay your 200,000 or 900,000, depending on which band you fall in, and then you'll have done your civic duty and your noble responsibility of building your country by paying your tax. So I thank you all. I wish you a successful end of your financial years. May your businesses continue to grow. May you continue to support the development of your country by paying your fair share of tax. I thank you all, and may God bless you.
Buuza Kamisona.